Hello and welcome to Slick Willie Fly. Today what we're going to do is this while we celebrate the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Cheers. And while we're going to do it, I'm going to make a white version. So real quick, I'm going to show you my materials. I'm using a Mustad 34007 size 2 stainless steel because my idea is for this to be inshore, saltwater, snook, redfish, trout. But if you're gonna go into the largemouth bass, for instance, this fly would be great on bass, but probably shouldn't use a stainless steel hook. So for the tail, I got a couple of feathers, and what I'm going to use is about 3 feathers of this cock hackle white. Then I'm going to throw in 1 feather of this rooster saddle in this cool little tan brown color. And for the body, I'm going to be using a little bit of brown deer hair. I'm going to keep this really simple. A couple of strands of Krystal flash. Haven't decided if I'm going to use silver or gold. I'll probably throw in a little white bucktail before I get into the main body. Alright, so let's change the camera angle and let's tie a fly. Alright, so welcome back. So let's jump in on it. So what I'm going to put in is a size 1. Might have said size 2 in the opening, but this is a size 1. This one is stainless. And I'm going to start with a little bit of lead thread just because the deer hair is going to make this want to float a little bit. So I just want to give it something so that it goes below the surface. This is a search and destroy kind of a fly. This is when, you know, you're up into the mangroves like Chokoloskee and you are just basically working maybe a tree line, a mangrove tree line or something, and you're just hunting fish. You didn't necessarily see anything, but you're just hitting all those fishy spots. So as you can see here, I have put a little lead thread, but I didn't put it by the eye of the hook. I don't want this necessarily to jig. I want this to just to sink. And I'm giving it just a touch of super glue. Now, that's a good drink. Man, it's so cool that the Panthers finally won a championship. I was actually in the arena in '96 when they had guys like Scott Mellenby and Rob Niedermeyer and Ed Jonowski and Van Beesbrook was a goalie, and they played the Colorado Avalanche. And they lost in 4, the Panthers did, but it was an awesome series. The Avalanche had Peter Forsberg and Patrick Waugh, and they were a great team, and all 4 of those games were just awesome to watch. And so it's cool, you know. They were in the finals last year, and they fell to the Vegas Knights. And they finally got it together. They finally did it, and they pulled it off, and they got their championship. So very happy for them. It's just fun to watch. I love the NHL, and I especially love the Panthers, and it's just fun to watch. It's great. Alright, so I started a little bit of black thread. I don't know why I'm choosing the black thread. Sometimes I like to use the black little thread, even though I'm making a white fly. I could easily change to white. I have tons of white thread, but I don't know, felt like going black. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a couple of these white hackle feathers, and they're going to determine my tail length. So I'm going to take the 2 longest ones that I have, and I'm going to make them about the same length, facing away from each other. So that they will give me a little bit of like beefiness to the fly. The reason I think this fly works so good is because the big body, if you will, the deer hair body, is large enough that when you strip it through the water column, that it's pushing water and makes these tail feathers just wiggle. And if you strip quickly, probably wiggles less. I think that I've seen it actually. This fly, if you work it slow, it wants to bob and weave, you know, to the left and to the right. If you work it a little quicker, it tracks like a torpedo, but the tail still has quite a bit of action, which is pretty cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and put one. Actually, I'm not. I'm just going to go to the tan. I'm not going to use any more white. I'm going to go straight to my tan feather. You know, I just don't think you need more. I think the length is more than enough. I guess I should have talked a little bit about the length. Got busy talking about the panthers. You know, what happens to me is that when I start tying lengths that I know I like. But I would say that this length is about 2.5 hook shanks, which, you know, for some people that might be too long. I just think it's a great action. Perfect. So now the tail's basically done. So now I need to decide if I want to use gold Krystal flash or if I want to use silver Krystal flash for this fly. And the gold was sitting right next to me, so I think it's going to be gold. They both work. I can't really say that one works better than the other. And I'm not going to use a lot of Krystal flash here. I got 2 strands, which is probably one too many, but we're going to use it anyway. 2 strands, I'm going to fold them in half as best as I can. Then I'm going to take 1/2 and I'm going to put it on the side of the hook closest to me. A couple of loose wraps just to make sure that that's where I want it. And once I've secured that where I want it, I can bring the remaining over. And now I start to get it locked on the opposite side of the hook. And once I have it locked on the opposite side of the hook, I just make sure that I like where it's sitting and I can really lock it in. And I like folding these over because by folding them over, they really are on there. They're tied on there really well. And now I just open my loops, make sure that I like the way everything is sitting, because I could still make minor adjustments at this point, but I like it. Looks good. All right. So now you have a choice. You can use a tiny bit of chenille or a tiny bit of anything really if you wanted to make a little bump, which a lot of times I do, but I'm not going to today. Today I'm just going to go to a little bit of white bucktail. This bucktail is starting to get a little banged up, but it'll work for today. And you don't need a lot. And when I use this bucktail, I'm going to take out all the shorts, same as I do every single time I use bucktail. And by doing what I do is I pinch and I just pull out, and anything that is to the right side of this pinching spot will come out. All these little guard hairs will come out. You don't need them. And then I rotate it, and anything that's extremely long, I just pluck those out. So nice. So I rotate it again. And now I want to look at my length. And that's about the length. I would say half the tail is about the length that I'm looking for. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim this up so it's nice and neat. I really believe that when you trim these things up, it makes the tie-in a lot better, a lot cleaner, a lot of everything. So what I've done here is I gave my bobbin a turn to the right, and what that's going to do is when I start to wrap, it's gonna take the thread and fold it towards my fingers, which just like that, which makes it very easy for me to get the thread where I want it. Now I do want this bucktail to go around the fly. So I'm working it with my fingers right now. Make sure I like where it's sitting. And once I like where it's sitting, now I can pull this tight. Just like that. Beautiful. That little bucktail right there is gonna make the tail keep its shape. It's also gonna give the tail a little bit of additional stiffness, and it's gonna make the tail a lot more durable. Now, you don't really need to trim this too much, because in the next step, all this gets covered. But I just like to trim and keep things neat. Sometimes I'll take a needle and make sure, maybe a cleaner needle, and make sure that I've distributed well around the hook. Just like that. Beautiful. Alright, so now we're going to switch to the final ingredient here, final material. And this is brown, just simple brown deer hair. Now I'm going to take a clump of deer hair about the size of the white, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a little clump of brown all the way around, not quite as long as the white, but again I'm going to pinch and I'm going to pull out all the shorts. And I'm going to take away anything that's crazy long. So now my length is, I would say, 1/4 of an inch, maybe 5 millimeters for my metric friends, shorter than the white bucktail. So that's about my length. Give it a trim. Again, making sure that this is going to wrap the way I want it to wrap. I just place my deer hair on the fly. A couple of loose turns. I don't pull tight. If you pull tight, it'll start to spin up. But I do want to make sure that it's around. Just like that. And then I hold everything with my left hand nice and hard when I pull tight with the bobbin. Alright. Perfect. That's not going anywhere. And that looks sharp. Love that. Alright. So now I'm just going to take a couple of clumps of this deer hair and I'm going to spin up some deer hair. So the way I like to do it, I don't like to take big clumps. I always pull out my shorts. And then for spinning deer hair, a lot of times I will actually take a scissor and I will trim the tips. Don't really need the tips. Now all I'm going to do is lay this about 50-50 here, halfway. I'm going to give this a couple of loose wraps. Spin it around like all the others, and then I can crank it and start to spin that deer hair. Just like that. Beautiful. And now I work through it as I push it all back. I just wiggle my way through it. Now this is an important part of this process. I have this little homemade deer stacker, hair stacker, and you want to make sure you give it, you push it all nice and tight to the back on every clump. I could have easily gone out and purchased, like Loon makes a hair stacker, probably better than mine. I just think it's cool to go into the garage and solve my problems. I needed a hair stacker one day, so I went and rigged up a hair stacker. So I'm gonna do another clump, exactly the same as the first clump. Again, I'm trimming off the tips. I'm gonna go ahead and place it about halfway on the hook. Couple of loose wraps, making sure that I spread this out around the hook. And once I like that, I can just crank it, and it just wants to spin up. And I just keep pushing it back as I work by wiggling the thread through the deer hair. And now we do it again. I'm probably gonna fast forward through this portion because it's just the same thing again and again and again. Alright, so now it's just a whip finish and a trim job. Alright, so now we need to trim up this fly. And what we're going for is this kind of a look. I want to push water. I want this kind of torpedo profile. So we push water, and when we push water, it's going to give this tail a lot of action. And you can see right away that I made these very different lengths. And it's just going to attract different kind of fish. That's all. The length of these flies is really, it's just up to the individual. So now, you absolutely could take a razor, but you need to be very careful when you do this. Remember, you can never put the hair back. Hey, welcome back. So there it is, the Swamp Muddler. It's a great fly. It's going to push some water. It's going to get some great action out of those tail feathers. Just enough flash, I think, to catch fish. Here's a tip. If you pack the deer hair really, really hard, it looks great. And it's easier to trim with a razor. But when you pack the deer hair super hard, it makes this fly really float. So I want a little bit of water to be able to work its way through there, and that's why you'll see this isn't super packed. But that's just the way I prefer. If you really want this fly to ride high in the water, almost like a popper, pack the crap out of that deer hair. It'll ride high. So cheers again to the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the 300 subscriber video. I have a contest going on, and that's a cool fly that you have a chance to win. Don't forget to have a rum and coke with me. Good luck catching. See you on the next video. Thanks again for watching.